If you're in the market for a relatively talky switch with a good medium tactility, then consider PantheonKeys' new Purity switch. It is not the talkiest switch that we've ever reviewed, but it is relatively affordable, and for the amount of money that it goes for, it's a really refined switch, as you'll find out in this review of the Purity. First, specs. The Purity has a full PBT housing, so the top and bottom housings are both made of PBT. It's an interesting decision because when it comes to PBT, it's usually associated with a deeper, talkier sound profile compared to, say, ABS. But this is in the context of a keycap, so the fact that this is applied to a switch is pretty interesting. Aside from that, it also has a mystery blend stem, and it has a 65 grand long spring as well, which makes for a stronger, more responsive upstroke. As for the manufacturer of the Purity, it is a company called Maroon, and honestly, this is the first time that we have heard of the brand. That being said, they do make pretty darn good switches based on our time with the Purity, and I'll elaborate more later on. Lastly, we have the price of the Purity. In Singapore, it goes for 60 cents per switch, and that's about 2 ringgit here in Malaysia. That is a good price point in my opinion because it's right in the middle of the super affordable 1 ringgit switches and the more premium 3 or even 4 ringgit JWK switches. So how does the Purity perform? Well, pretty darn good. The tactile event for one is very nice and rounded and not sharp at all, which I personally quite like. While we're talking about the tactility of the Purity, I have to say it has a strong medium tactility. It is not quite as tactile as, say, the Glorious Panda or the super tactile Moyu Black, but it is more tactile than, say, the Kiwi or even the Cherry MX Brown. The bottom-out sound is also nice and poppy, though I have to say it's not quite as full sounding as, say, Cherry MX switches. Those nylon bottoms have a fuller sound to it than the slightly thin bottom out of the Purity. While we're on the topic of bottom out, it's worth noting that the Purity only has 3.4mm of travel compared to the typical 4mm of travel of other tactile switches. So that 0.6mm of travel doesn't sound much, but it does feel noticeable, though I have to say I don't mind it at all. It feels quite natural to type on despite the reduced travel, which is a good thing. In terms of smoothness, the Maroon is actually quite smooth because there is factory lube right out of the box. I have to say it's not quite as good as lubing the switch yourself, but for a switch that just works great out of the box, it's fantastic. Last but certainly not least is the tolerance of the Purity, which is very good, making for very little stem wobble. As a result, it feels very nice and stable and tight to type on rather than it being loose and unrefined. So, is the Purity worth getting? Well, it really depends on your personal preference. If you like how it sounds and you want a stable switch with a relatively affordable price tag, then yes, the Purity is certainly worth a consideration. According to PantheonKeys, the Purity will enter group buy in the next couple of weeks, so if you're interested to get this switch, head on to PantheonKeys Discord as well as its website. And that is our review of PantheonKeys' upcoming Purity switch. As usual, we will leave you guys with a sound test of the switch on my own personal Gerald 65, which is a very nice Alice style board, but I digress. Like this video if you like it, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and always stay tuned for more good stuff to come here on this channel and nextshrift.com.